Welcome. Ready to get started with this session. It's called Finding Your Niche as a First-Time Advocate. This is our session to welcome and provide some orientation. And guess what? I'm not going to do it. I wanted you to receive that warm welcome from your peers. So I'm joined by a panel of survivors, just like some of you in the audience. This session is really to just talk about why advocacy matters. Why does it matter for you? Why does it matter for this community as a whole? It's best to just have a conversation and hear why it matters to these individuals and how they can express their thoughts and how they share their stories and how they go about meeting with their representatives to provide that peer-to-peer advice and support to you so that tomorrow, well, Tuesday, you'll be ready to do the same. So why don't we get started? So Terry Ann, why don't you start by first introducing yourself and tell us how you started your patient advocacy journey.
Well, that's a good story, Elridge. I'm Terry Ann DiGiulio. I'm a 3-time lung cancer survivor. And an innocent conversation where I was sharing my story, a fundraising event, led a local oncologist to say to me, "Do you know why breast cancer is so well funded? Women went to Washington and they made some noise. Our patients need to go to Washington and make some noise." I said, "I'll go to Washington. How do I do that?" And I went to someone to go to, and I said, this was my conversation. They said, "You need to meet Elridge." Now that event was at the end of October. The second week in November, I was sitting in Senator Casey and Senator Toomey's office with Elridge sharing my story and learning about the lung cancer research program. And it was a powerful, amazing experience. And I'm still here. So that's how I got started. And from there, it has grown to, I'm now a consumer reviewer for the lung cancer research program. And I speak at a lot of different events to advocate for our community.
Thank you for that. I'd like to introduce you to Bruce. Bruce, also tell us about yourself and share any background you'd like to provide.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Bruce Dunbar. I'm from New York, just outside New York City, and I'm a 5-year survivor of ALK-positive non-small cell lung cancer. I got involved in advocacy also through an oncologist. My first engagement was he asked me to come to speak to his a class that he was giving for medical students on lung cancer. So it was a really nice audience and a really interesting experience. And then I spoke at some events that they hosted, and they pointed me to other opportunities, pointed me to go to for this summit, and it just each time I did it, it felt better and better and better to be involved and to share my story and to see that it had an impact on people and an impact on funding and activity for lung cancer. So I keep coming back and I keep enjoying it.
And I'm Elizabeth DeYoung. I am a 6.5-year survivor of non-small cell lung cancer, ALK positive. Recently added on a MET amplification because one wasn't good enough for me. And my advocacy work actually started about 8 months after my diagnosis. So I picked up the phone and called a friend of mine who works in the pharmaceutical industry and said, "I know that you have a lot of connections. I know you hear a lot of what's going on. I want to make more noise, and how do I do that?" And she connected me with the Go-To Foundation. So that would have been in 2017. And I came and participated in the summit, told my story. At that time, we were living in West Virginia and had the opportunity actually to meet with Senator Capito and said to her, "I am the face of lung cancer." And she said, "How old are you?" I said, "Well, I was 47 when I was diagnosed." She said, "That's my daughter's age." Exactly. And she signed on to the Women in Lung Cancer Research Bill at that time. And I have kept going ever since then. I'll tell my story to anybody who will listen. And I also, like Terry Ann, I serve on the CDMRP which is a congressionally directed medical research program, which is what we're going to be talking more about during the summit. I serve as a consumer reviewer on their lung cancer research program, because not only do I think that we have to make a voice this way, it's important for us to be involved in other ways as well.
Hi, I'm Cliff Norton, and it's a privilege to be up here with the 3Ds, DeJulio, Dunbar, and DeJong. Y'all need to put together a law firm or something, New York, not too bad. So my story, I was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer in July of 2010. I became NED in December of 2012. Spent 2.5 years battling it, so I'm a little over 10 years now as a survivor. Those of you that know enough about this disease, a male survivor my age with that long of a survivorship, I'm not on a graph anywhere, okay? Seriously, you read all the graphs, you look at the pie charts, those kind of things, I'm not on any of those, okay? So the good Lord saw fit to keep me around for whatever reason, and this is one of the reasons right here, is to be here to support advocacy. So I started right after I was diagnosed. I spent the first 2 trips up here to DC that I did, I was still being treated at the time, and I've never met a microphone I didn't like. I've never met a person that I didn't like, and if somebody wants to hear my story, I'm very quick to share it with them. So, thank you.
Now, I would like you to describe for this audience how you all bring such a powerful voice to advocacy. But how did you find your voice? What gives you the confidence that you will be heard?
I found my voice in a couple of ways. One, I was very fortunate to have an oncologist who looked at me very early on, day 2, and said, "You fit this profile of young, female, non-smoker. I'm going to send your materials out for biomarker testing." And I thought, how unfair was it that just because I landed in the right hospital bed with the right doctor, that I got that privilege? That there are people out there to this day that are not getting the testing that they need. And so that's part of where I found my voice, was wanting other people to have that opportunity that I had. The other thing I think that I find that maintains my voice is that we are pushing the envelope. That we are, breast cancer did have more money because they had more voices. Well, you know what? We have more voices now. We are living longer, we're surviving better, and that is where my voice continues to come from. And as we grow in survivorship, our voices will grow on the Hill, and that is how we get more money for research. Research is how we push our survival forward. So it's that never-ending cycle.
I was always a fundraiser for cancer, and then when I was diagnosed with lung cancer, a brief part of my story is 6 family members were diagnosed with lung cancer, 5 after I was. So after my mother passed from lung cancer, I was NED for 11 years, and I just got my second diagnosis. And I was asked to speak, I'm treated at Penn Medicine, I was asked to share my story at their lung cancer conference. And there was someone there, Nicole, who works for GoTo. I really wanted to get involved after my second diagnosis with lung cancer specific, and she asked me to speak at the conference, and I did. And part of my story was I was NED for 11 years. At that time, I was only diagnosed twice. 2 years ago, I was diagnosed a second or third time. But when I left the stage at the end of the conference, a woman came up to me and she said, "My doctor stopped my scans at 10 years. I'm going to ask him to please continue." You never know when your story is going to have a profound impact on another human being. That's how I found my voice. So our stories are powerful. Every single person's story is different. My story is different than Elizabeth, who's different than Frances, who's different from my mother, my aunt, and my uncle, and my other aunt, who's different from Cliff and Bruce and all of you. Our stories matter, and they're important. So just be yourself and get out there and tell your story.
Elizabeth, I know, can answer my next question. What makes someone an advocate?
You become an advocate the very first time you tell your story to anyone. Doesn't matter if you're telling the story to a family member or a coworker, but when you tell your story, you're raising not just your voice, but all of our voices. And then as you become more comfortable telling your story, that's when you grow as an advocate. And that's how you come to sit in this room.
Why do you come here, year after year?
We do it because it's there. It's like the guy that wants to go climb the Himalayas or something. It's there. It's something that can be done. It's something that we can have an impact on. And in my world, being able to walk in, whether we're talking to staffers or whether we're talking to the representative or the senator themselves, for most of them know the dismal statistics. And for me to walk in there and tell them, look, I'm a survivor of over 10 years due to research. I'm here because of that research. And that's why I need you to join forces with us here. So that's my story right there.
You know, every year I hear new stories. I hear new stories from different parts of the country, different types of lung cancer, different paths to get here, different types of treatment journeys, and it's they're all different and wonderful and inspiring, and it just keeps energizing me and makes me want to do more to get the funding that we need and to make progress for the future.
I come for the next generation of my family.
And so let's transition to telling our stories. Let's talk about, you know, what are your simplified tips or short tips or peer advice to this group of first-timers?
I think it's important to hit the important points of your story and try and keep it brief, so that everyone has a chance to tell their story to make the biggest impact as you can within your state. So when I share my story, you always want to share where you are so they understand where you live and what your role is in the community. I was a business owner in the community. I share that I'm a multi-generational lung cancer survivor. And I talk about being a consumer reviewer because that's important too. The Lung Cancer Research Program, which is our big ask, Elizabeth, who are you, we see firsthand the research that is trying to be funded, the grants that come through, and it's an important program. So when I share my story, I keep it brief, but think of the most impactful parts of my story to share.
I think it's important to tell your story in your way. I tend to be fact-driven. I'm not as emotional a speaker as some people are, but that's what works for me, and that's what I'm comfortable with, and what I think is compelling, or how I think I can be compelling. Other people rely more on their emotions. They have a different story to tell, and they should tell it their way. So I think thinking in those terms has always made it easier for me to figure out how to tell my story and how to relate to the people that I'm speaking to.
I do think that some other things other than your lung cancer story in is important. So for me, one of the things I talk about is that, I'm a recent transplant to Pennsylvania. My husband and I very actively chose to be where we are. And so I share that so that they know that I have chosen to be a part of their constituency.
So Elizabeth hit it right on the head, though. Long version, short version. And what we're going to be doing this week when we go to the Hill on Tuesday is that short version, okay? You need to focus on that short version. 5 bullets, 4 minutes. Practice it. Figure out the 5 bullets, the points that you want to make, and make that speech a 4-minute or less speech. Hit those points. Be emphatic about those points, whether it's personal, whether it's your community, where you're at. Find those 5 bullets, write them down, and then write your speech around those 5 bullets. Make sure you hit all of those. As Bruce mentioned a minute ago, for some of you, this is really going to be difficult. There's going to be some tears, okay? It's going to be tough to tell your story. I don't want to discount that, but don't let that be 2 of your 4 minutes. Compose yourself, get yourself together, put your speech together, let them hear that. If you need to shed a tear, but don't let it consume your speech. That's the thing you have to be careful of. Don't ramble. Stick to those 5 bullets. Practice that speech. We talk about long version and short version. My short version is I introduce myself, as there are some people here who already know. Hi, I'm Brad Pitt. I've just grabbed your attention. Okay, what is this guy doing? And so that's my short version is, hi, I'm Brad Pitt. And I'll get a smile. We're engaging then at that point in time. And then I can say, but by the way, my name's really Cliff Norton, and I'm here to talk to you a little bit about lung cancer. And I hit my 5 bullets. Rehearse that speech, though, folks. I can't impress, and again, the Toastmaster's coming out of me. Rehearse that speech. Know what you're going to say. Rely on notes if you need to, but try not to rely on notes. Get that speech down pat. Practice it. Put a time clock on it. Put your watch there. See it. Make sure it's a 4-minute or less speech, because you're going to have other people in the room. And I heard somebody a long time ago say that that a 2-year-old has the attention span of 30 seconds, something like that, and that over the next 4 decades, we only gain about 3 minutes, okay? That our attention span is somewhere in that, truly our attention span's in that 4 minute when you're sitting there talking to people. So 5 bullets, 4 minutes, practice it, know it, go in with confidence, look them right in the eyes, tell them, hey, I am a cancer patient and I need your help. And how I get your help is by you voting for these 4 asks that we're going to throw out there in front of them when we're in front of each one of our representatives or senator.
If I can just add to that, so we've been doing this for several years now. In 2013, something happened that we had been advocating for years before, and that was the early detection program. And I'm going to get emotional here, to be a part of that advocacy and then to see it come to fruition was one of the greatest feelings that we ever experienced. And so when you come here and you advocate for people, Francis had a he always says he's a lightweight because he was a 1B, and I told him, you survived this for a reason, and you need to find out how you're going to take that into your future. And that's why he and I, along with him, keep coming back, and he keeps going to lung cancer support groups. When you advocate for these things and you see that something that you've been advocating for happens, it makes it all worthwhile. And I can't stress this enough. Keep coming, because we need these voices. We need everybody's voices, and we need to grow our community.